Welcome to the Brave Zone and welcome to Brave Webinars. Um, Today, it's going to be an interesting topic because it's going to be a topic that actually is quite personal. And I think not just for me, but I think for all of us. And it's not so much about business or strategies, but it's really about our mindset, about what understanding ourselves a little bit more. The power of enough is a term that I coined a couple of months ago. I would think that's one of those inspirations you get in the middle of the night type of thing, but it really encompasses what um, I've experienced in my life. And when I listen to people and I've spoken to people all over the world, there's that stress point that they are experiencing. And when we dig further, it's all really caused by a certain culture that we've been conditioned to live in. And that is basically the culture of more. The feeling that we are not good enough until we have more and more and more. And before you know it, you get sucked into more. So I want to share with you this journey. I will start with a bit of a life story, and then we will also, of course, go through some of the tips and points about how you can shift from this whole stressful culture of needing to have more to really the culture of accepting and healthy ambition that comes from the power of enough. So let's get started. Right. So a little bit about myself and how I came to become and do what I do. Uh, my purpose is to reignite your genuine strengths and remove the limits that block you from contributing your very best. I liken it to all of us have this little fire in us. Now, sometimes my job is to fan that flame. Sometimes my job is to shield that flame from going out because of external pressure you might be having. Or it could be also to show you that the flame exists and maybe be that magnifying glass that reignites that flame. Whatever it is, I think all of us has that strengths in us that we can contribute at very best. But sometimes we are limited by certain limiting beliefs, value systems, misalignment, and that is what's keeping you from doing so. One of the things, of course, is also the stress and this negative self talk that you put on yourself as you're trying to contribute at your very best, but you're not allowing yourself to do so. My background is also a mix between psychology and business achievements. I do pro bono talks in and around different kinds of nonprofit organizations dealing with relationships, youth empowerment, mental health, spirituality, things like that, just to get a holistic view about how to be successful and to be a well-rounded, successful person. My own story, I mean, growing up in my family was interesting. I mean, I'm Asian, grades are important. That's how it works. So grades are very important. And if you look at our school system, there's a lot of comparison between the good kids, the bad kids, the ones that's doing well. And, I'm a next generation. I was born in 1974. So there wasn't a lot of empowerment in Asian schools back then. If you did something wrong or if you weren't as good as somebody else, the teacher could very openly tell you in your face how bad you were. So that's a very disempowering culture back then. Glad things have changed. For me, in my family, money was a form of survival. Not because we were in need or anything. Actually, I grew up as what I would call a very privileged kid. But so I never experienced any hardship. However, my parents did. So they all grew up during the war. They had 6 to 10 siblings each, and they had to make do. And both my parents were basically the backbone of the family. They were the smartest ones. They were the ones bringing home more money probably than their parents. So and they took care of the unity of their family. So for them, money wasn't about status and bringing branded stuff, but it was about survival. And their tip to me was always that you have to have money, because if not, then you can't survive. And that was something that was conditioned in my head. So it wasn't about ego, it was about giving. They used to have different bank accounts where they would put in, well, my mom still does, support some of their siblings every month. So even though now their siblings in their late 50s and mid 60s, they're still doing it until today. So only later in life did I start, having friends for whom money was a status symbol. Like you'd have the latest cars and everything like that. I mean, we had convenient cars. We had a Volvo because it was safe. We had a minivan because we had big we had big bodies and we need to fit in a vehicle that would fit us. Everything was practical. But my friends, I started having friends who had, luxury cars, and they started using luxury symbols like fashion and jewelry and everything like that. And that gave me a new light about what money was. Okay. And I remember when I was 16, now we lived in America since I was 10, and my dad brought all his savings to America, started a life there. But unfortunately, he couldn't get a job there because he was very entrepreneurial. He couldn't really work for anyone. He was very unemployable. And in addition, in his 40s, it was very difficult for him to learn English to the point where he could be like a top executive or something like that. So he ended up working in Indonesia most of the year, and we got to see him probably every 6 months. So I can't imagine how my mom and dad dealt with the marriage, but they were a super couple. They were a great team, and I'm grateful for that. When he was 16, on one summer, there was a dinner conversation where he showed us that he basically had this much savings when he started in America for us, and then now the savings has dropped. And I can literally, until today, I can still see his hand dropping. And that for me, it was kind of like a landmark event for me, because that was a time when I started being afraid of being poor. And I think that fear of being poor, because again, money for us is not a status symbol; it's a survival. Um, it started it has started having a negative effect about how I viewed money. So a little background about where we come from. I'm from Indonesia, but I'm Chinese descent in Indonesia. And back then in the 80s, 90s, there was a lot of discrimination. And until today, you can still argue that there are some. So for my dad, as a 16-year-old, he gave me the tip that if you don't have cash, you basically can't survive. So that was a tip for us. So I was had the fear of being poor, so I worked hard to achieve what I did in corporate. I felt the burnout, which then led me to damage my personal relationships. But because I had a bad relationship at home, I wanted to go to work more. So the bad relationship fueled more workaholism. And then I started getting awards, global awards, regional awards, in both my Fortune 500 companies that I worked for, as well as when I started doing business in my franchise. So the awards then fueled this whole status of what it was all about, and wanting to be successful for recognition, not really for self-actualization, but it was for recognition. If I didn't get the award next year, what would that look like? Meanwhile, in Indonesia, my reputation soared because everybody wanted me as their speaker. I was invited to open Southeast Asia for my franchise, and I got to sit in VIP tables. Everything was, but it was strange, and in many ways it was kind of like that should be a good thing, but for some reason I didn't really enjoy it. It was kind of, I was burnt out already, so there's that feeling of, wow, she's very successful, but that was all a facade. And deep inside there was that emptiness, and this is why I went into this topic. So the reason why I was being a workaholic was really to chase after a dream that I had, so that I wouldn't be poor and so that I wouldn't lose recognition. Okay. Which is, we all have towards motivation as well as away from motivations. But to me, it started getting too much of an away from. It started getting too much driven by fear. And when I look at a corporate background, for instance, sometimes that is the conditioning that has been put in many corporate citizens to do something so that you would get recognition, but not really so that you can be your best self. Okay, that is something that's very different. And then I started losing balance on the other wheels of my life. I was 100% work. I was 100% business person. What switched it for me was total burnout, and also the work I'd started doing on myself about self-awareness, mindfulness, working on my life wheel, etc. And then I got in a relationship with a beautiful man, and I'm still in the relationship with him now. And I saw how he's very successful, but his life is very balanced. He had fun. He appreciated beauty in the world and in things, and he had love and everything. And I wanted to be part of that. And I wanted to break away from that one-sided life I had, and I wanted to get into a more well-rounded life. So I worked on it. So I stripped myself away from my old life. Of course, I prepared everything, but then I developed my new why. From my background, um, it was never about having a big helicopter, a big yacht, and a big house. That wasn't my dream board. I think because of the way our parents conditioned us, it was about helping others. But interestingly, the motivation and the drive of helping others and pressuring yourself to help millions of people and others and la 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 and be as great as your parents were, it also was a big negative pressure for me. So the self-actualization why actually worked better for me than the why of helping more people. So now if you ask me why do I do what I do, it's because I want to live my best life. I want to be fulfilled. I want to experience what's it like to be the best of myself. And I trust myself that in the process, because of what I do, because of what I create, things like webinars like this or the coaching that I do for people, because of that, I trust myself that I will help people. But that's not my purpose in life. My purpose in life is not to help people anymore. You see, because that somehow created also a negative pressure. I know that in my heart, I have that heart to help people. So if I become the best of myself, I will do that anyway. So it's been an interesting journey, and this is why I love taking people on their own journey, because again, it's the finer distinctions between what's a healthy ambition and what's not a healthy ambition. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that everybody that wins awards or has lots of money and everything is bad. No, no, I'm just talking about my story and how it worked for me. I'm glad I had the success I had. I'm glad I've proven myself in many different ways, but I've made a conscious choice not to be that anymore. Okay. And I developed a new philosophy for my business. I want my business to be big and everything, but I can feel that within myself, the ambition is not coming from fear. It is coming from passion. It's coming from love. It's coming from wanting to be the best. So this is the finer distinctions I want to take you through today. Okay. In essence, it was stepping out of being driven by fear and going into my brave zone and saying, I trust that if I become the best of myself, my world and my life will be at its best. All right. So let's talk a little bit about some of the conditioning we've had. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about the symptoms of the culture of more, um, the the power of enough and everything. But I want to share with you some of the things that we might have been conditioned. We are conditioned to compare ourselves with other people. Like in school, the grading system, sometimes it's a curve grade. So uh, you are marked whether or not you're better or worse than other people. We have awards to award the best this, the best that. It's almost like we also have classes that say, okay, this is the, the posh people, and these are the chavvy people, or whatever you call it around here. It's like economic status, and human beings are not equal. We have to have classes, okay? And I'm the highest of this class, and you're the lowest of that class. So it's always a comparison. Who's number one, two, and number three? Social media. Oh my God, who's got the most likes? We are checking our posts a little bit too much, and we are engaged in social media and scrolling up and down timelines, watching how other people have better lives than we do. So we are comparing. It's almost like every day we're asked to compare ourselves. I'm not saying that's good or bad. You just have to ask, is that useful? We are also conditioned to achieve more. So this is what the culture of more um, started to feel like for me. You got to be the best. If not, after you've reached a certain level of best, go get another level of best. In corporates, achieve more. You close a certain number of sales, next year they're going to increase the target by 20%. Last year it was easy enough to get an incentive bonus of XYZ because you achieved this. Next year they're going to increase it and make it a bit more challenging. Things like that. When we go to a life coach seminar, or motivator seminar, more. If you're going to be happy, you're going to have more. You got to have a bigger car, a nice branded watch, a nice vehicle, a nice yacht, and whatever. Okay. um, Consumerism, more shopping. You get rewarded for more shopping. You get an extra 5% discount if you buy X pounds, instead of a lower value. So you get rewarded with points. You get into a special flying club. A special lounge is provided for people who give more and buy more. Okay, so we are conditioned for more. And once we get more, don't stop there, because we make ourselves jump further to get even more. As soon as it becomes this rat race, right? This endless rat race, and we end up sacrificing our health, our relationships, our life balance, searching for more. Okay, while I'm saying all this, I want you to catch yourself. Are you feeling these kinds of things? And maybe it's just me, right? But I've talked to a lot of people where their stress point is coming from the fact that they want more in their lives, as if their current life is not enough, and then to the point where they don't even know what they're fighting for anymore. Okay, so this is some of the things that may be happening. And then maybe it's self-deprecation, or maybe it's being humble or whatever, but you start saying, I'm not smart enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm not pretty enough. Whatever it is, you're basically saying, I'm not enough. Okay, and again, is that useful? Okay, so then we start posing as external standards of excellence. So instead of taking time to develop ourselves and having our own internal standards of excellence, we start putting other people's standards of excellence on ourselves. Okay, and everything becomes external based. I'm happy if you give me recognition. I'm happy if you are engaged in my social media posts. I'm happy if you follow me. I'm happy if you tell me I'm good. Yeah, so when do we live for ourselves anymore? Do we start putting on society's standards to define what makes us happy, to define who we are? Do we have an internal compass anymore? Okay, so this is the extra, and the external could be a specific group of people, like your parents, your spouse, your children, your colleagues, your boss. Okay, it doesn't have to be the world, but it is still external. And all this is really fear-based ambition. Again, there's nothing wrong with ambition, and I want to show you healthy-based ambition later. But all this is fear-based ambition, and there's three basic fears that we all have: fear of missing out, fear of not being good enough, and fear of not being loved. Like fear of failure, that's fear of not being good enough, not being loved, depending why you think you're afraid of failing. Okay, there's a lot of um, fear-driven ambitions, and when you act on fear-driven ambitions, the process that you are taking to get that success becomes burdensome. When your ambition is more healthy and love-based, you enjoy and feel fulfilled even if you haven't seen the results yet. That's the distinction that I want to make. So if you're going on this journey that you have, and you're feeling heavy, and you're feeling stressed, check what's driving you. Why does it have to happen? What do you think you will lose if you don't achieve it? What do you want to gain by achieving it? Because sometimes because it's a fear-based ambition, a fear-based goal, rather than a goal based out of love and passion. Let's take a little bit more details about the difference between being driven by fear and being driven by love. Being driven by fear is to meet expectations. I've got to do, and I've got to say certain things, and I've got to keep achieving for me, because I won one award and I keep winning awards. Okay, I mean, I am, after all, that lady in the VIP table. Why? I can't stop winning awards. Not to get left behind. Oh my God, that country, that person, that coach in the other country is getting awards. I need to keep up, right? To avoid ridicule. Certain organizations are very good at separating people to make sure they know that they're not equal. You get invited to sit in a certain area, you get called out, you get into better buddy, you're better buddies with the top guy, you know? And if you're not that, you're nothing. Okay. So some organizations are very good in motivating people to keep achieving, but it's actually, they're fear based. It's the fear of avoiding ridicule or not to disappoint. I mean, thankfully, I had supportive parents, but I know some people, they strive and achieve as not to disappoint their parents or their family or whatever their culture system is. But what's a love based ambition? The love based ambition, and you can have the same journey externally. We can see that it's the same journey, but yours could be love based, you know, winning awards because that's just how you actualize yourself. You love winning awards because that's the best of you, and that's all right. You know, I'm not saying that everybody who wins awards are unhealthy. Okay, I'm just sharing my experience. To reach our dreams, yes, love based ambition exists. You can still have ambition, you can still have big dreams. Okay, but you're enjoying the journey getting there. It's not stress, it's not burnout. To grow, the ambition to always be the best version of yourself, to reach your personal best every single day, but it's your personal best. It's not to be the best among people, it's to be your personal best, because you can't really control whether or not you're the best among a crowd, because I mean, somebody might surprise us and just be fantastic that week or that month. What you can control is you, and you beat your own personal best. To live your best life, which means balancing your life. You're more than just work, you're more than just one side of life. So that's the difference. And I hope you're starting to see the difference. I want to look at this list. Where do you spend the most time in? Is it on the left or on the right? Is it fear based or love based? Where do you find your energy being directed? To meet certain people's expectation, to avoid ridicule, to avoid shame, or to actualize yourself, to grow, to reach your dreams? Why are you doing what you do? Okay. So let's recap a little bit between the difference between the culture of more and the power of enough. Okay, so this is the two different ways of living. When we look at the culture of more, we live by comparing ourselves with other people. Okay, got to be the better one, got to be the best one of the group. Whereas when you live in the power of enough, it's all about achieving your personal best. When you live in the culture of more, you may be wishing that you were somebody else. God, he's so amazing. I wish I was more like him. I wish I was more like her. And you sometimes downplay yourself. Whereas if you're living in the power of enough, you see the good in yourself. When you see other people succeed, culture of more people may put them down. Maybe physically, oh, congratulations. But inside you're like, oh, bitch, you know, like, can't believe that. Oh, they must have cheated. Oh, they must have had help. I mean, I didn't have the privileges that they have. Envy, basically. Whereas if you're living in the power of enough, you're basically celebrating with them in abundance. Culture of more people tend to be impatient. Where's my results? Where's my results? I've done this so many. Oh my God, stress, because you want more results faster because you can't wait to show other people how great you've been doing. Or you can't wait to satisfy yourself to the fact that, yes, I'm not missing out on anything. But the power of enough people, because you are so fulfilled in the process, in the journey of achieving success, you're more patient because you're enjoying yourself along the way. Culture of more people, because you're so burdened and stressed, you're not enjoying the process. You can't wait for it to be over. Never feeling grateful is also a sign of living in the culture of more, not seeing what you already have. But the power of enough is more about being consistently grateful. It's easy to find the negatives in the culture of more, whereas it's easy to find the positive in the power of enough. Obviously, with all those things on top, living in the culture of more, you're a more anxious person, whereas in the power of enough, you're more peaceful. Now, if you look at the culture of more, a lot of the negative feelings that you're feeling is also because you're thinking too much about the past and regretting it, or you're worrying too much about the future, anxious about it. Whereas if you're in the power of enough, you kind of enjoy and live in the present. Not to say, and I want to clarify, I'm not asking you after this webinar, forget everything, close your business, sit under a tree and meditate and be present. That's not what I'm saying. Okay. As I said, there are healthy based ambitions. What I was going through was that when I was achieving, when I was striving for things, it was about worry about the future. It was more about, if I don't do this, my future will be negative, 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 right? Whereas now I'm enjoying the process and I'm seeing the results, but I'm enjoying the process. I'm living in the present. I take it one day at a time. I'm more patient with things and processes. And moreover, now I'm more content to be who I am instead of being critical and being unhappy about me. All that imposter syndrome, I don't think I can do it, blah, 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 could be because you are living in the culture of more. And then you try to be a people pleaser because, external standards of excellence, obviously, you've got to care about what other people think about you. And sometimes you lack the ability to be comfortable in your own skin. Whereas if you are living in the power of enough, you are comfortable in your own skin. So again, here's the point. It's completely your choice. No one can tell you that you need to live with the power of enough, to embrace that. No one can force you to feel good. And there are many reasons why people choose to stay in the culture of more. And many of them are still because they can't let go of that fear. Some people I know are just, in that they need more. And after they get more, they spend loads more. And then now they need more again. It's almost like they're not living mindfully, and before you know it, it becomes a habit. It's a routine. I remember getting out of my workaholic routine was very difficult for me, because that's just what you do. What do you mean you don't wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning? What do you mean you have to shut your gadget off? What do you mean you can't check emails past 7 p.m.? That's just what I have to physically, if you email me, please don't do this, but I'm just saying, because this is a webinar and we're all friends. If you email me at 7:30 p.m., right, don't expect an answer till the next day. But you have to understand, me on the receiving end of that email, if I did happen to see that email come in, I have to consciously make a decision to put it off. That is how much self-control and consciousness that goes into saying, no, is this urgent? No. Okay. It's dinner time. I'm not going to answer that. Okay. In the past, I'd be in the dinner table answering emails. Okay. Because I feel good because I do more, and I'm chasing to be more. No longer. This is enough. Today ended at 6, and this is my enough. Tomorrow starts again at 9. That's how it works. Okay. So that is something that is a personal choice. Now, how do we shift? When we want to shift, we have to understand again, and if you were in my earlier webinars, you have to understand this identity iceberg. Some of you are familiar. I'm going to repeat it just because, it's useful for everybody to relearn things. This is how we work. We are an iceberg. We are an identity iceberg. We all want these results in our lives, but the results are driven by the actions, decisions, and behaviors. Results, action, decisions, and behaviors are all on top of the iceberg. Okay, this is the tip part of the iceberg that we all can see. But the nature of icebergs is there's loads of other things that we cannot see that's submerged in the water. And that, we can't see your skills. Like just standing there, I can't tell if you can play the piano or if you can speak French or something like that. I can't see your skills. But we behave in a certain way because we have appropriate skills for them. We wouldn't be cooking if we didn't know how to cook. We wouldn't be speaking French if we didn't know how to speak French. We wouldn't be delegating work if we didn't know how to delegate. We wouldn't communicate positively if we didn't have the skills for that. Okay, so what determines what skills you invest in is your beliefs about yourself and your world and your worldview. Beliefs is what you believe to be true. Beliefs are something like, I have to have more to be happy. That's a belief. Or I am enough just the way I am. That's also a belief. If I don't answer emails at 9 o'clock at night, people will not like me anymore. People will think I'm lazy. That's a belief. Emails, that is not about life and death, can wait until the morning. That's a belief. Okay. The beliefs you have is driven by the values. Now, where belief is what you believe to be true, values is what you deem to be important. Values. Workaholics value work above all else. Children are not important as work. Somebody else can spend time with my kids. I've got to focus on work. Okay. The value of being pleasing other people, that's a value instead of loving oneself. Loving oneself is also a value. Okay, so balance, life balance is a value. Okay, it's what people may think it's important. Money is a value. Instead of life balance, you might say money is more important than life balance. That's a value. And this is not good or bad. I'm not here to judge because everybody comes with a certain conditioning and a different background. Okay. I understand why money was very important for my parents because look at their background. They had to split one egg 6 ways, just to feed. That was them and their siblings. So it's not an easy life. And people who were brought up that way, money is very important. But the good thing is they never wasted it. Okay. They had the appreciation for it. And it all starts with how you see yourself, your identity. Okay. My parents saw themselves as a caretaker. So their version of more is how can I help more people? How can I take care of more people? Even to the extent where they were all burnt out, but they kept wanting to do more. And you can argue that's very good. And everybody lives with the consequences of the choices they make, right? And yes, my father died pretty young at 60. I know he was stressed out. He worked a lot and he helped people a lot. A lot of people that he helped probably disappointed him in many ways. But it was a decision that he made, and his life reflected that. And in many ways, he was a fantastic man. And you should have seen his funeral. Everybody came, and days and days and days. It was like endless, right? But that's how much he helped people. But at the same time, there were certain things about his life that was unbalanced. Okay, so I'm not here to say what's the right way. I don't think my life now is even, maybe not even the right way, but what is right? This is not about right and wrong. It's about being more aware about how you live. Are you fear-based or are you love-based? Okay, and then if you are feeling discomfort in the way you carry yourselves around in life, well, check. Are you living in the culture of more, or are you embracing the power of your enough? And of course, all this is fueled by your environment. I mean, it's the people you hang out with, the people you listen to, the people who mentor you, the role models that you have in your life, and the people who conditioned you with or without your being conscious of it. Okay, so when we want to shift from the culture of the culture of more, to embracing the power of your enough, it's basically shifting the environment, identity, values, beliefs, skills, behaviors, and results. Okay, it's not just one thing. It's a whole work, and that's why you do have to take the time to work on yourself. So let's go through a few things. Okay, so this is the part of the iceberg about your why, even on top of results. Why do you want, why do you live? Why do you do what you do? Why do you achieve? Okay, in the culture of more, the why is typically a fear of not being good enough, love, missing out, all the stuff that we've talked about. In the power of enough, your why is because you want to be fulfilled. You want to live your best life. In the culture of more, your why, your results that the result that you see, despite all the things that you're trying to achieve, is typically a sense of burnout, lack of balance, and sometimes despite all your success, you feel empty. You have loads of money, but you feel empty. You have loads of recognition, but you're losing yourself. Whereas in the power of enough, You're actualizing a healthy ambition. You feel that sense of purpose and you're feeling fulfilled along the way. As you journey towards success, you're already feeling good. Some of the behaviors that we see in the culture of more: negative self-talk, workaholism, unhealthy lifestyle. Whereas in the enough, positive self-talk and self-care. Skills. What skills do you sharpen? In the culture of more, it's really work-related skills, goal-oriented skills, whatever it is for you. Whereas in the power of enough, it is a balance between that and also a bit of self-development, understanding yourself. What are the beliefs that people in the culture of more have? I need more to be happy. I need more to do this. I need to be more, do more, have more to be happy. Whereas enough is happiness is my choice. I can wake up in the morning today and say, I'm happy. I'm going to be happy today. And that's it. That's all you need. Values. What are the things that they deem to be important? Comparison is important. To be the best among others is important because it's more, right? To have more is important. Whereas in the culture, in the power of enough, it's about peace, love, fulfillment, growth, and gratitude. The identity, I am, the I am statement that you give yourself. I am not enough. Therefore, I need more. This, my life, is not enough. That's why I need more. Whereas in the power of enough, you are enough. Your life is enough. And of course, you are surrounded by birds of a feather. The more you live in the culture of more, the more you attract friends and people around you that live also in the culture of more. I mean, you just have more things to talk about. Whereas if you're living in the power of enough, people who live with that also surround themselves with people who have the same values. So how do you ignite the power of enough? How do you make that switch? My recommendation is that you need to be aware of your now. When I take people through this journey, whether you have an imposter syndrome, etc. I remember I was working with a client, beautiful introvert, and she says, I'm not enough because I'm an introvert. So, well, tell me what you do. So what she does is she's a graphic designer. So she thinks she's actually a lot more than that. After 2 sessions, 3 sessions of coaching, she realized she was much more than that. She was very emotional to find out that she had so much more to offer, and she's plowing now, and she's doing very well. But the thing is, being aware of where those beliefs come from. Who told you you're not good enough? Whose voice is that? And why do you think you're not good enough? Because you're an introvert. Okay. I gave her some tools about introversion and how powerful it is to be a designer and an introvert, because you listen more and you're more sensitive to things, and you can express your client's message and be more emphatic to your audience better than perhaps someone that was really flashy and really extroverted and don't really listen well to people. So she realized, though, it was for her, the reason she felt bad about herself was that was completely her choice. She kept comparing herself with other people. She didn't graduate from a big design school, so she thought that she wasn't good enough as well because of that. Another client of mine, a lawyer, a solicitor, being aware why she wanted to retire out of being a lawyer, because obviously that's very, very difficult, very stressful. She's almost 60 and she just wants a new life, a more relaxing life, less stressful. But it was hard for her to get rid of the title lawyer, because the title lawyer made her feel significant. I'm a lawyer. I'm really important. And we dig. Where'd that come from? When she was small, one of her parents used to be very critical about her, even to the point where they said that she was nothing. And so she fought and struggled in her life, not with them, but she fought and struggled to be someone. And she went into law because that was someone. And now wanting to shift and transition to a different kind of lifestyle, that's difficult, because now you're not a lawyer anymore. What do you do? Who are you? Why are you significant? First session, long session. Anyway, she took a package where one session was about 4 hours long because we just wanted to hash it all out. Second session, she said, I'm more free. Second session was all about planning her future. The first session was all about understanding herself. And before we started the second session, I said, how do you feel now about leaving that title? And how do you feel? Like, I mean, I always check, what's been happening since we last met. She said, I feel more free. I feel more free to do what I want. I know I won't lose that significance. And that freeing, and you can see from her face that she's actually more free. She's actually smiling. She's looking forward to not being the lawyer anymore. She's not afraid of losing that. Okay. So be aware of your now means that whatever's holding you back, whatever beliefs that you have about why you need to be in the culture of more, let's understand that. Where's that coming from? Who caused that? Could be you, could be other people. And it's not about pointing fingers, it's about accepting and understanding. Second, determine your why for change. I always ask my clients, or before I get to my clients, well, why do you have to change? Because I'm not here to convince you that you have to change. I don't want to work with people who don't know why. Okay? Because that's just hard work for me. I don't, and it's not my job to understand your why. It's your job to understand your own why. But why do you want to change? Because the culture of more, when you shift that, you're getting out of your comfort zone. So you need to understand that why. So we'll challenge you with certain questions. Appreciating your past. It's very interesting how when people are faced with a certain issue, let's say a business issue, they just want to talk about their business, their business. I take them on a journey to understand their childhood, the way their parents conditioned them, their teenage lives, the milestones, certain milestones in your life, and appreciating that past instead of regretting it. So I remember there's this one gentleman who always wanted to be in a senior level management, but he always found himself in a mid-level management. He was always behind the shadows of decision makers. I mean, he had all the abilities to be a decision maker. So I took him through what we call the brave transition process. And we talked about his past because something was holding him back from speaking out, stepping up, and being that senior management that he knew he could be. And then we went back and he told me, I mean, you look at this guy, he's so simple, he's friendly and everything, but he told me a past that was so impressive. He changed cultures, he made drastic changes in small communities, and he was the change maker. And he was making very strategic level decisions. But he also grew up with a father who kept himself in the shadow and did not believe that people should speak out. You just do your stuff, do a good job, but you don't need to let people know. And that was where it was coming from. Right, so that was the blockage. How do you appreciate that? If you've met this gentleman, his leadership style, his communication style, he makes you feel so good about yourself. He's not about ego at all. And the gift that past, that humble father past, that he's gotten from his father was basically the ability to light people up, lead them from the back, but empower them. And if he were this egotistical leader, he wouldn't have been able to do that. So that was the gift from his dad. Okay, so appreciating your past. So he appreciated that was what made his leadership style so unique. He empowered people, but he was also very strategic. He was doing that. So we determined a way for him to step up, but not out of ego, but with a purpose. So he decided that he wanted to make positive change for his world, for the communities, for underrepresented people. But he's going to do that not with flash and ego, but through people empowerment, and then initiating higher level conversation with senior management and putting himself on decision-making committees. Appreciating your past, finding your gifts, the gift that he learned from his father, the gift of being introverted, like that lady found. Okay. And then we create your purpose together. So what do you want? Okay. So what is, based on your gifts, the past, your why, what is it that you want? to do? What lights you up? And there's a whole process. It's about what you love to do, what you're good at. It's also with the type of people that you love to serve. And then the rest of it is pretty much very technical, drawing your roadmap. What are you actually going to do? And identifying some people who can support you, including perhaps myself as a coach. But for some people, they can find their own thing. And I'd like to, release you to do it yourself if you need. Just keep in touch once in a while. Okay. So this is the process that you can go through. Now, that pretty much sums up this whole concept of the power of enough. We've talked about where it comes from, the conditioning that we've had from our parents, our teachers, etc. We've also talked about the symptoms, how you can tell whether or not you are living in the culture of more, or you have embraced the power of enough. And perhaps, we have about 10 minutes. I can basically open the chat and have you type any questions or any comments that you have. And I'll leave you, while you're thinking about it. If you want to harness the power of enough, I do have a 30-minute complimentary session where we talk. We talk about what you're going through right now, and then help you see how you can transition from that stressful culture of more to perhaps embracing more of your enough. Okay. And we can also talk about what's blocking you. And if I can be of any service at some point, that would be great. Okay. So it's a complimentary session. There's no obligations. There's nothing I'm trying to sell in the session. If you do want more out of that, we can talk, but that's it. Okay. So you just email me at live@thebravezone.com. So 10 minutes left, right? Use the chat. Did you get any value out of this? What did you learn about yourself? Please type it in chat, or if you want to speak, feel free to mute yourself, but I think we can start with that. Typically, some people are too shy to talk. They just want to chat. So if I can see, I've got my chat open now. If I can see some comments going through, or some questions, maybe you've got some questions, and that would be really cool for me to answer them live. Go ahead. I think we're often stuck in organizations that thrive on creating fear. Absolutely, Maria. I absolutely agree with that. And hopefully when we create our own organizations, we don't do that. And in fact, many of us who have children and families and social circles, we already have an organization. Are we driving our children with fear or with love as well? Okay, it was a good reminder to remember that I'm enough. Very useful. Great to hear that, Emma. The environment is so predictable at the moment. How can we plan? Jillian, we're not talking about planning. This is about self-awareness, right? So when we say, I think you might be referring to the slide where I talked about, how to harness the power of enough, drawing your roadmap. It's about how you want to shift. It's all controllable by you. I don't work with things that is not controllable by you. So creating your purpose, how are you going to actualize your purpose? Some part of actualizing of that purpose is dependent on the external business situation at this point. Let's say your business is one of the ways you actualize your purpose. But let's concentrate on the things you can control. Okay. You need practice, sharpening the saw. Excellent, Rennie. That's absolutely true. Interesting. My children note how hard I work, and it's worrying that they may see that as the way to be. Yeah, that is possible, and that's probably one thing that we have to remember. I remember when I give talks in a family conference a couple of years ago, I always talk about the generation tree. And one of the reasons, I think the biggest motivator for us to be the best that we are and be balanced is also to show a good role model of how life is. I mean, parents are the children's first God, somebody said. And I was like, oh, I never thought of parents are my God, but that's all you know. That's all you know. I mean, you can meet other people, but basically your parents are your real role models. I guess for me, I work really hard because my dad worked really hard. I resonated a lot with my dad, and um, I saw him work so hard. Saw him work all the time. Some of our family vacations was without dad because it was mom that took us out because he couldn't make it. So it's yeah, I think be careful. Great, great observation there, Maria. Yes, you took it from your mom. Yeah, I took it from my dad. Okay. What other thoughts are we having? Any questions? When you're looking at the iceberg and how it affects you, right? The environment is unpredictable. Yeah. So it's very good for us to be strong in our identity and our own values. I want to um, I want to focus you on what you can control, right? And trying to get other people in your environment to change is very difficult. But selecting a new environment is critical. Choosing not to spend as much time with people who are always talking about more, and stressing out over things, or choosing to treat them with love, and just, all right, that's where you are, that's your space, but I don't have to be like you. Okay. But sometimes when we're not self-conscious, and this is the purpose of this webinar, I want to get you to be more self-aware about your beliefs, your value system, and your identity. Because sometimes we just make friends and we're unconsciously making friends and we're being affected by our friends. We don't even know we're being affected. So the stronger you are in developing your own iceberg, the more, one, you can choose the environment that's right for you, get away from the environment that's not right, or limit that environment. I mean, it's your family, you can't get away from it, but you can limit it, or you can limit how much you actually listen to them, right? And start selecting new environments. I think that's how we focus on what we can control. How to make that leap from fear to love is basically operating on this. Again, Maria, we have this slide that we've gone through the difference between the more and the enough, and working on this for everyone, and everyone's got their own little details, and working on this process for yourself. That's how we do it. There may be more fear out there after this lockdown and more drive for money. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something, if you choose to operate in the culture of more, it is a conscious choice and you accept the consequences. My challenge to you is, how do we approach? Yes, there will be a drive for money, but for the most part, most people are not hard up for cash. They have savings, their business is not doing so bad, or they can bounce up. I understand if you are super desperate, you don't even have a place to live, or you're not enjoying 3 meals a day and you need to, but for the most part, at least the people in this webinar, you're not so desperate as the people we see in shelters, or we see that's living in a 150 square meter, flat on the 10th floor in the middle of a bad part of town. Okay. You do have a social aspect. So how do we, my challenge to you is, yes, after this lockdown, everybody's going to be operating by fear, but how do you make a conscious choice not to? And I would suggest it's about creating daily rituals now. Don't wait until the lockdown is over. What is your daily ritual to remind you that your life is all right, that you are all right, that you're enough? And when you strive to get more money because it is a necessity or whatever, it becomes more like, I am going through this process and I'm going to enjoy the process. And I know that this is what I have to do, but it is not because I'm afraid of anything. I was speaking to a client of mine. I shared the story last webinar. A very accomplished entrepreneur, investor. All his 3 kids will go to an international school in Indonesia. And he says, yeah, after this lockdown, because his 42 tenants in London is obviously not paying, because they use his mortgage break as an excuse not to pay. But he says, okay, if I have to simplify my life, I'm ready to do that. Okay. So when you're operating from enough, like when I moved here, I realized I need to simplify, right? I won't be making the income. All I have is the passive income I have from my businesses, but that's not, I've lost all my active income because I've given up all my coaching clients over there. I've given up my speaking gigs that was really good. Okay. But I decided I simplify so I don't spend as much and everything. And it feels like, okay, I do my accounting every month basically. And I was like, I'm not spending as much because I'm also I'm also changing my lifestyle. I don't go out to eat as much. I control my shopping, things like that. So again, I challenge you. It seems like, yeah, well, we're all going to be driven by fear after this. That's just the way it is. No, that's living without mindfulness. You have a choice. Even if the whole sea is going one direction, you have the choice to swim the other way. So how do you do that? And I don't know the answer for you, right? And how do you focus on what you can control? Organizations, it'll be harder to drive people without fear driving them. Doesn't mean we don't try, but it's going to be harder. That's a belief. I'm going to call you out on that belief right now. It's going to be harder, belief. I need you to put into place, I challenge you to put into place better daily mindset rituals for yourself. Okay? Because it's going to be harder. We can't operate like this. Please put better mindfulness. If you can, how would it be done? Okay? If you can, how can it be easier? Don't say it'll be harder. Okay, if it's going to be easier, what needs to change about me to make it easier? What needs to change about my iceberg to make it easier? Okay. Really wonderful to see your comments, and thank you for being so interactive. Thank you for allowing me to comment on your comments. And I know you can't comment back, and that's a bit unfair, but I really enjoy having you, and I think all of you are brilliant. And I want to make sure that you know that I'm here to support everybody. And if you need to book a complimentary session and talk things out, let me know. Until then, we will speak next week about the mindset shift between an employee and an entrepreneur. And this is not only for employees, because my guess is a lot of people probably will be going into self-employment, or a lot of self-employed people are struggling with running their business because they act like an employee instead of a business owner. So this mindset shift webinar is really not just for employees. All of you, if you want to be sharper entrepreneurs and understand how to make better decisions, I highly recommend it. All right. You take care, everyone. Thanks for being so illuminating. Everyone's illuminating. I'm going to steal Julie's illumination words. She said it's been illuminating. So I say everyone's been illuminating. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll see you in the next webinar. Bye-bye now.